All right, we ready to start this?
Yeah, let's start with the cheers.
All right, cheers. All right, folks. Well, we are doing something a little different tonight for Halloween. Me and Edward, if you guys don't know Edward, we'll give him a chance to introduce himself in a minute. But we're going to do this video kind of podcast style because Edward and I are out on a trip. And basically, I just don't have time to edit a video. So I'm going to just throw this up and just the way it is. But we're going to talk about a few subjects that have to do with overlanding. But we are on an overland trip, and we just happen to be in a, what would you call this?
It's
A
like
haunted house? Or
it's an abandoned
ranch house. Abandoned ranch house. So This is not any type of green screen or anything like that. We are in a remote area, and this is an old ranch house. You guys, those that have followed my channel for a while, you guys have seen this house. It's Shirk Ranch, and we are on the Bend to Alvord trip, and we've been traveling for
5 days. 6 days.
We haven't been going for 6 days though.
So I left Friday, met up with you on Friday. We left Saturday morning from Bend.
Right.
So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 5 days. This is the 5th day.
Oh, okay, that's 5th day. Well,
yeah.
Guess time flies when you're on boat, because it didn't seem like it was that long. I thought.
Well, the days are a blur right now to me.
Yeah. So, anyways, we've been on the Bend to Alvord trip, and like I said, we just don't. I wanted to get something up to the channel, and being that it's Halloween, I mean, what a better place to do it than in an abandoned ranch house out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I will admit this place is creepy right now. In the daytime, it didn't look that bad, but even in the daytime, it looked kind of weird and freaky. But now, if you just look around here, this place is just freaking creepy.
He gets that. We got this little window shade. He's getting a breeze in every once in a while. It's making his cackles come up.
Well, I don't know if you guys can tell, but the windows are broken through, and then the drapes are just kind of tattered up. So there's slight breeze coming right behind me, and I can't see what's behind me. So that's another thing.
So anyways, we got a couple subjects. We're going to kind of talk about our trip a little bit. But first of all, for those on my channel that don't know Ed has a YouTube channel of his own. You want to take about 30 seconds and tell him a little bit about your channel?
Yes, hi, my name is Edward Shin. I have a channel, Primal Outdoors, or if you look up Edward Shin, it is myself and a 2021 Ram Rebel that I've outfitted to go overlanding and car camping. Sometimes I'll do solo trips, and other times I'll take my family. I have a 11-month-old baby and my wife, and sometimes our little dog. It's a half Yorkshire Terrier, half poodle toy dog. And we'll go out and camp and overland, and that's my passion, and that's what I've built the car to do. So that's what my channel's mainly about.
Yeah. So anyways, if you guys don't know Ed, definitely go check out his channel. Probably too, because Ed's going to go with me for a few more days until we finish out the Bend to Alvord. But then I'm actually doing back-to-back trips. So I'm meeting up with Donald from Soft Roading the West. And we're going to take another week and extend on into some other country. So that's part of the reason, again, why I'm doing these, like this podcast style video, just because it's going to be a couple weeks before I'm back and able to actually start editing some of this content together. But so anyways, what I'm saying is check out Ed's channel, because he's probably going to start pumping out some content maybe as soon as Sunday even.
Yeah, so by the time you guys see this video, you might see the first few days of our trek from Bend.
Yeah, on his channel. So definitely check out his channel and stuff like that. But first thing I kind of wanted to chat with you about, because this is your first time doing the Bend to Alvord. You actually were supposed to come with me and Donald last year. Yeah. And for those, again, that don't know, me and Donald did this trip last year from Soft Roading the West. But Edward was supposed to come with us last year, but what happened there?
Yeah, well, little backstory. I was super stoked and pumped about this. Like, Jason created this route from Bend to Alvord, taking mostly backcountry routes. And I was like, okay, I'm in. We're going to do this. But the thing was, there's many months in the making. And by the time the time came around to do the trip, which I was really amped and stoked about, we had a baby. My wife and I, Katie.
We didn't have a baby, but
no. Well, that you know of, no. But so we had a baby. Our baby Chloe Grace was born in November, and that is around the time that this trek took place.
Yeah.
So I was super bummed. So I'm glad that I got to do it again a year later.
Yeah. So it was good. I talked to Edward, and again, we planned this months ago, to do this and for Edward to get the time and everything. So we've been 5 days into the trip so far. And for those that aren't familiar with the Bend to Alvord, what it is an overland route that I created 2 years ago that gets you from Bend, Oregon, all the way to the Alvord Desert, which is a big dry lake bed. It's really popular with adventure vehicle enthusiasts. And if you were to go from Bend to the Alvord via highway, it'd take you about 6 hours. But to do it through my route, there's several little scenic things that you can check out along the way. You got the Shirk Ranch, which we're at right now. You got the A6 Intruder. You got Christmas Valley sand dunes. And then there's just miles and miles of beautiful desert country, high desert country to go through. And then one other point I should bring out is that you also go through the Antelope Refuge, the Heart Mountain Antelope Refuge, which that's what we drove through today.
Right.
So that's kind of what the route is about. So it's an off-grid route. It's about 300, I think it's somewhere around the neighborhood of 314 miles altogether to get you from Bend to the Alvord. And it's all dirt track. There's 2 highways you got to cross, but each time you jump on the highway, you really only need to drive about a half mile on each one.
If that.
Yeah. I don't even think it's a full half mile before you actually jump on the highway and jump back off onto public land again. So, but anyway, so we're 5 days into this. We've gotten to the Shirk Ranch. What are your feelings on it so far?
Yeah. So I honestly did not know exactly what to expect, aside from what like Donald put out. So as far as the in-between of the different sites and, scenery along the way. So I've been to Bend. I've done things around Bend. I've been to Sisters, and I've been to Alvord Desert, and both places I love going. I've never been into the places in between. Now, what I thought it was going to be, based on my limited knowledge, was just a lot of desert road and with a few things here and there. But I must say, in the last 5 days, it's been some of the most beautiful country I've ever been on. And there were some challenging moments. There were some butt-puckering moments. And you'll see what we mean when you see the adventure videos. But it's not, I didn't expect it to be easy, completely easy. On a scale from 1 to 10, I did not expect it to be like a 1, 2, or 3. And it definitely wasn't. There were some parts which was like a 6 or a 7, maybe, I'd say. Which I would feel like you would need to be equipped for. But aside from that, it's just beautiful. I'm glad I've done this. And it is definitely something I highly recommend because it just blew my mind. It exceeded expectation, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty stoked that I was able to put this together. And, kind of my driving force behind doing this and coming up with this route is, Bend is a fairly popular town that people like to go to. It's a mountain town. There's a lot of outdoor activities you can do around Bend. So it's pretty trendy and a lot of people enjoy that area. But then, like I said earlier, Alvord is kind of a go-to place for adventure vehicle enthusiasts. I mean, you'll see a lot of overland style vehicles, built out vans like mine, things like that type of vehicle go there. So to connect those 2 points via an off-road track, and actually make it a true overland experience, that just seemed like a really awesome thing to do. And with my prior experience, just camping around and spending time on the public land system we have here in Oregon, I felt really confident that there had to be some way that you could get from Bend all the way to the Alvord, all via public land, all via off-road, off-track driving.
Yeah, and a pleasant surprise to me, actually, when it was kind of told to me, and the way I thought about it was, if it's all public land, there's not going to be much access to facilities along the way. So I had my concerns, which was fuel, even food and water and things like that, and restrooms. So and we'll probably talk about this later maybe, and I can go into it later, but I bought some additional items and gear just to be prepared for that. But in this case, in the last 5 days, honestly, I didn't really. I had enough access to restrooms in the way it was plotted, and we were able to get food aside from what I packed, and even fuel. We were able to get access to fuel. So those kind of concerns were set aside. I'd say it was kind of irrational for me on the beginning, but now that I know that there are those access points, like I'm even more confident that most other people can do this without having to worry about those simple basic needs.
Right. Yeah, there's two actual places that you can kind of resupply along the route. You have to jump off the route a little bit. It's not like right on the route. You have to, jump on the highway and actually drive to one of the towns, but it's not horribly far. So if you found yourself, like if you get to the Christmas Valley sand dunes and you find that, maybe you're a little lower on fuel than you like, or that you maybe don't have some supplies that you would like to have, you can run into Christmas Valley, which is a very small town, but they do have a decent market. So you can find some food supplies. They got fuel and propane, so you can do that. Another place along the route that you can jump off if you need to is the little town of Plush. Definitely a small one there. I mean, in fact, to the point when I first went there the first time, I wasn't even sure the pumps were functional. Like they're that old looking.
Yeah, very old school.
Yeah, but they do have gas, and we had some really good burgers there that they were humongous, like tasty.
Now I would actually recommend you put that into your route if you can, because that joint was great.
Yeah,
and the service was great, but it was like a mom and pop store too.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, they have a few groceries, but not to the extent of say what Christmas Valley had. Another little fun point is if you go to the plush store, you'll see that they have dollar bills stuck to the ceiling everywhere and with people's names on them. Somewhere in there, and I put it up 2 years ago, and I couldn't find it when we went just yesterday. But somewhere in there's a Primal Outdoors dollar bill. So if you're at the plush store, definitely go look and see if you can find it. But now from this point on, like you leave Plush, this is probably the biggest trek from Plush to Field Station, which would be your next location with the most miles. And I don't know what it is off the top of my head, how many miles from just that point to this, but I've done it twice now. And when I did it by myself, I managed to squeeze it out in one day, all the driving, but I ended up getting to the Alvord Desert after dark, which again, it's October, kind of October, November. And when I did it then, it was November. That's why I was thinking. So, you're working with short days. So that's part of it right there. Last year when I did it with Donald, we stretched it over 2 days. And so that made it a little bit easier. You weren't pushing quite so hard. But it is a lot of miles. And I did, the van doesn't get the greatest gas mileage. It gets about 10 miles per gallon. And I had filled up in Christmas Valley. And by the time we got fairly close to Field Station, I got to a point where I felt like I needed to add my extra fuel that I had on board. So
yeah,
that's about 200. Well, that was about, so the van typically gets, typical round town driving and highway driving and stuff like that. I can usually get 250 miles out of it, which isn't great by any means. But again, when you're overlanding, you use more fuel than you would driving around town. So you definitely want to make sure that you got a good amount of fuel.
And just for reference, my Ram typically gets about 11.5 miles to the gallon, and it's a 33-gallon tank. Now when I look at my dash, it's showing about 10.5 miles to the gallon, just because we're going on inclines, climbing, and doing stuff like that. But I would say up to this point now in this trip, I've never been less than 2/3 of a tank before we refilled up. Mm-hmm. I always felt like I needed to refill up just to be safe, but I was never at a point where I was like half a tank. It was always more than that.
Yeah, and you've been carrying extra fuel too.
I carry 4.5 gallons extra fuel just in case. That's one of the gear I brought extra for this trip. But it turns out like I never really needed it up to now. And still, after this, maybe not.
Yeah. The biggest thing I would carry extra fuel for is, and Donald from Soft Running the West brought this up, is if for whatever reason you got well into one of the routes and something caused you to have to turn around and you weren't going to make it to the next location, you may find at that point that to be able to go all the way back, you might need more fuel. So if you have something that gets much better fuel mileage than what we're getting, then you do better. But I'd still think it's just a smart idea to have some fuel on board.
Always, especially on a journey like this where it's multi-days and it's a long distance for sure, just in case.
Yeah. So anyways, the other thing I kind of wanted to ask you is like, so now that you've done this, or you haven't completed it completely, but at this point, like, have you ever done anything to this extent before?
Not like this. Not like this where it's predominantly, public land road and even just questionable terrain even on some points. There were even some points where I thought we were going to get stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
But as far as like this much stretch of land, this much scenery, the combination of everything, even like the climate, which was challenging at times, it's a first.
Yeah. So we have had some, because it is fall, we've had some, crazy weather a little bit. Like we started off with wind and rain, and anybody that's familiar with the BLM, at least in Oregon, and I'm sure in other places, like when these roads get wet and they've been dry for a long time, they can get greasy and it just sticks to your tires, and it's really easy to get stuck. We got quite a bit of wind and rain the first day, and I was slightly concerned on day 2 that we might have some challenging driving, but it wasn't too bad. There was a few spots where it was a little bit greasy, but for the most part, I felt like the dirt was pretty, like, back when I used to race motocross, there was like, you had dirt that you really like. It was sticky, got a lot of traction in it. It wasn't dusty. And that was the kind of dirt that I felt like we had a lot of the track. It was like perfect almost. You didn't, it wasn't like just slimy, but it wasn't really dusty. When me and Donald did the trip, all the way up until a little bit before this location, it was like 70 degrees, and Donald was eating dust the entire time. And then when we got to just before this location, the weather changed, and we had snow. We went from a 70-degree day to where basically we were in t-shirts the night before, sitting around the fire, to the next morning it was pouring rain, and then eventually turned to snow. So if you do it during this time of period, you have to watch for these weather events. And I think that's the kind of thing that Edward's talking about, is like we had a lot of weather that could have taken a very simple drive and made it a very technical drive.
Well, and there were actually even, like, Christmas Valley was a pleasant surprise. Like Christmas Valley dunes, right? The sand dunes. Mm-hmm. It's not actual sand as we know it, or muddy sand, right?
Right.
So, it did rain the night before. We went out actually and drove around in the dunes. It was sprinkling, and you can hear it on your tent. And so all I was thinking that night was, okay, are we going to have to drive out in the mud? Should we even go out into the dunes? But because, it's not, what is it? It's volcanic ash or something?
Yeah, it's like a mixture of ash and pumice.
Yeah, so because of that, it's like we were able to still drive immediately the night after it rained and just have a great time in the dunes. And you'll see the footage on his channel in future videos and in mine, where we just drive around this beautiful area. We pretty much had the dunes to ourselves too.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give too much away. But,
right, yeah, because we got videos coming. So
yeah, we got videos. But you'll see what we had to experience there. But it was like, if you're ever doing this trek, this route, and it's raining there, and you're at Christmas Valley Sand Dunes, don't even worry about it. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I thought the dunes were great. Like the van got around great in it. It was, the dirt was a lot, the sand was still somewhat soft but tacky. It was great. So,
yeah.
But so we went from the dunes, and then and again, trying not to give too much away because we want you guys to watch the videos. But is there anything else that, like, on this trip that has kind of really stuck out in your mind, or something that's just...
Yeah, the thing that left the biggest impression on me so far, and it's, to the point where, I almost feel a little emotional about it, but I know I'm never going to forget it, is the A6 Intruder. Mm-hmm. That thing, and because of the story behind it, what you did, and I don't know if people who follow you have already seen what you've done with it, but, it's it represents something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it represents something, and it's not just the representative of something that happened in the past. It's representative of things that are still going on now.
Right.
And we always, every year, we take a moment to just recognize that.
Right.
And for me to see something like that, I used to watch on TV or in movies or in documentaries about things like that. And you'll see what we're talking about. But to see it in person, man, and in the middle of nowhere, to me, it left a huge impression.
Right.
And, and I highly would recommend, although it is a trek to get out there, for you to get out there and check it out.
Yeah. And again, without giving out too much, I mean, for those who have been following my channel, you guys probably know what the A6 Intruder is, but the A6 Intruder is a military aircraft where two pilots were training and they got too low in nighttime training, and it wrecked in 1973 and the two pilots were killed, and the remains of the aircraft are still out there. And it's pretty amazing to me that like it's out there and it's obviously the plane wrecked. I mean, you can see the amount of force that this plane must have hit the ground, because I'd say about almost 300 yards of debris
at least.
At least.
Yeah. It's just so much debris scattered everywhere.
Right. But the other thing that's impressive is that it's been left out there, and obviously the plane not intact, but I mean the debris and where it lays is intact. Nobody, came out and started, taking souvenirs and basically ruining it, and it's become in fact, to the point that BLM has put a plaque out there and it's memorialized. And what is also out there, and I actually have never walked to it, but I've heard it's pretty picked clean, is there's actually another older aircraft, a P-38, that wrecked in, I think, the 40s or something like that. And I need to go check that out sometime, but it's out there. But I've talked to some old timers that actually used to live around the area and used to ride horses and stuff out there. They said there used to be quite a bit more to that aircraft out there, but it was, raw, basically picked clean by, people coming out and taking stuff. So I'll have to go check that out sometime. We'll have to do that on the channel sometime to go check it out and see what is actually still there. But the A6 Intruder, I feel like for the most part, it is sitting there just like it was left, when it wrecked in 1973. I mean, and it's, it's a pretty significant, like Edward said, thing to go out and do and just, think about what's going on and, have appreciation for those who have fought for our country.
Right. And it's not, exactly. And that's what it is. It's not just people who are just joyriding around in planes in the desert. Mm-hmm. It was people who are, fighting for our freedoms.
Right. And they were training for combat. Yeah.
Exactly. They were training. Yes. In this instance, they were training, but still they were in the situation where they were getting prepared to do whatever it takes so that you and I can have our freedom.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was I always enjoy going out there. That was probably that's my third trip out to the A6 Intruder, and I mean I enjoy it every time. I think not only is the A6 an amazing thing to check out as it is, but just the trek out there and just being out there in that area where like it's like as far as you can see, and you don't really see much of a sign of man. No. I mean, if you really want to get somewhere and feel like you're the only person on earth, that's one of the areas that you will feel like that on this route. There is actually multiple spots along this route that I feel like you can get that feeling.
Yeah. What's crazy to me about this place was you stand at the crash site and you just do a 360 turnaround, and there's no sign of, like you said, no sign of civilization as far as the eye can see, except maybe little scattered pieces of, the debris, and that's it. And it's hard to imagine because you look around, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, and then you look at this, placard, and you're just like, all of a sudden, it's like the whole country is right there.
Right.
I don't know how to explain that, but let me turn this off real quick. I'm recording some behind the scenes stuff, but
Yeah. So anyways, that's a little bit about the Bend Alvord. I mean, there's so much more. And if you guys want to find out more information about the Bend Alvord, you can go to my website. I'll put a link below. There's a link on there that's Bend Alvord, kind of gives some information about it. It also has the GPX file, so you can download it if you would like to do the Bend Alvord. But, you know, you're a few days into it now. I mean, I think people already got the thing, but like, do you feel like this was worth the hype, or did me and Donald overhype it in any way?
No. If anything, I don't think you shared enough of it. You know, like there's just so much that I haven't seen in either you or Donald's video that took my breath away. It's kind of cliche sounding, but there were some parts of the drive I was just like, wow, like I couldn't help just staring out the side of my window, and all of a sudden I'm climbing over a rock, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, and also the thing that kind of makes a trip like this a trip for me too is the company too, right? Like if I did this by myself, it'd be one experience, and I think it's another experience just kind of going with Jason. And, you know, if you have a friend or family member, definitely bring them along. But as well, going by yourself, I think it'd be kind of a different experience too. But it's great. Yeah.
So the first time I routed it, I was by myself. And I think for me, because I was trying to accomplish something more than just like drive a route that was already pre-designed, I think I was it didn't bother me that I was by myself at all. I was so in tune, like, is this road going to go through? Is it actually going to get to the next point? Because so many times you look at maps and stuff like that, and I think, you know, having navigation skills is very important when it comes to overland. But there's a lot of times you can look on a map and it will show a road, and then you will find out when you get there that the road is either closed or no longer accessible or not even there, you know. So like when I was working it the first time and trying to, you know, I'd routed everything using Gaia GPS and figured out my path, and then I had to go, and there was some points where I had to reroute and work myself around. So I was really focused on that. But the second time that I went, I took Donald with Soft Roading the West, and I think for me that time was just seeing the enjoyment that he had taking this route and seeing those things. And I think that was what, you know, and again, the same thing with Ed is like doing it again for the third time for me is not so much the route. I know what to expect for the most part, and I know it's going to be beautiful, but like seeing somebody experience it for the first time, that for me really is the fun part now.
Yeah. The best way I can really describe this experience so far is like driving through a giant museum. Like the different things we've passed by and seen, and even this place right now, it's like freaking creepy as hell. But it's just like, you know, you go to a museum and you see things that you don't see anywhere else really. And and you just want to stay at different exhibits and just kind of stare at it and take it in. And that's the feeling I've been getting at these different places we've been going to, as well as during the drive. And that's the big part of overlanding, is the journey too, right? Like,
right.
From one destination to another. And during that whole time, it's been, I mean, absolutely just, I just wanted to just take everything in. That's why I brought my camera. I'm filming all of this stuff too, because I want to look back on this and remember it. And I'll probably be taking these trips again on this route again in the future. I have a feeling, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one more point that I want to make. When I made this route, like, it was important to me that there was things to do more than just a 300-mile slog through the desert to get to the Alvord. I wanted there to be along the route points of interest that made the route more interesting than just days and days of driving across, you know, rough terrain. So that's why, like, things like the A6 Intruder, Shirk Ranch, where we're at, going through the refuge, you know, and then eventually coming out at the Alvord. And there's a few other little things and stuff if you're willing to explore along the route that you can find. And another thing that I think is important and interesting about this route is it's fairly accessible for anybody to do. And there's no permits that need to be taken. It's like basically you just need to make sure you have the right setup for yourself and, you know, the right gear, but there's no special permits or anything like that. And then also you can do it in sections. Like, it's kind of broke down in sections. So you could go from been to Christmas Valley, and then from Christmas Valley to Heart Mountain, then from Heart Mountain to Alvord. So if you didn't have the time like we are, starting on Saturday with our intended end date being this next Saturday, then you can do it in sections on weekends and stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to do the whole thing. You can kind of like on the PCT or something like that, you can section hike it, or section drive it. So
Yeah.
I think that's really good. And so that was important to me as well, because I think a lot of times, if you're watching YouTube, you watch some of these guys doing these overland trips, and it's really cool to see that, but then you kind of think like, well, there's nothing like that here, but there is. We have public land, and there's miles of it, and like this is one example of what can be accomplished in the West in public land, and as far as a really cool off-grid overland trip. So we have plenty of opportunity, and it's something that's available to the entire U.S. public, or anybody that's in the lower 48. We have this public land that's in the West, and kind of make my little preach here, is why I always talk about on the channel, like, we have to protect this public land, because that it makes trips like this possible, and it makes trips like this possible to everybody.
And I also think there's an unintended benefit that you might not have planned for, that I kind of recognized so far, is the people that we met along the way here, like the waitress at the restaurant, and the waiter who was also the gas pump guy at Plush. They're fantastic people. Like, if you ever drive through these towns on this route, and Plush was a little sidetracked, but definitely I'll recommend going there to fill up and get a good meal. But it's just a part of, I think, overlanding too, is overlanding community, right? We have an overlanding community, as well as just people that we encounter along the journey, and these people are great. So if you do drop by these restaurants along the way in Christmas Valley, Plush, or wherever, definitely tip them well.
Yeah,
they're in small towns trying to make a living,
right?
But they're the friendliest people I've ever encountered.
Yeah, no. Yeah, the guy, I mean, the young gal at the restaurant, she was great, but the guy at the gas station yesterday in Plush, I mean, he's basically doing everything, cooking the food, pumping the gas.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah.
And doing the cash register inside the store, all that stuff. It was amazing.
super. And I love those small town, like, especially those places like that are, all in one, and, they're, it's just a unique place. I'd rather go somewhere like that than a 5-star restaurant. Like,
yeah, absolutely, man.
So.
It's just something that it goes very deep in terms of the relational aspect of it. So they're highly recommended.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit. We've talked about Ben Alvord, and we still have a couple days of travel. So we'll be starting on that tomorrow. But let's talk about something that we talked about a little bit today as we were driving. We were actually using our comms. We talked about comms. So what comms did you bring along this trip, and what do you feel is kind of a necessity?
So ever since I started overlanding up to now, I feel like comms is one of the more important things. There's comms for single travel, like a solo travel, and there's comms for group travel. So for group travel, I have a GMRS radio that we use to communicate. But for solo travel, I have like a Garmin Overlander. I have a Gaia app installed into my phone. And I also have a Garmin InReach, just in case if I'm by myself somewhere and there's no reception, it can use satellite signal to signal SOS for services if I'm stuck, or if I'm hiking and I break my leg and I can't get any help in the middle of nowhere without any reception, right?
Right.
So those are the things I've prepared just to be safe. Better safe than sorry is I learned to live by.
Right.
But that's what I've used pretty much all of that throughout this trip so far. Like the InReach, because my wife is at home. And there's places we've been here where there's no reception. And so I text back and forth to let her know I'm okay, send her my GPS location so she knows where I'm at. So that's a benefit of something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do see a lot of value in that kind of stuff. I mean, for a long time, I had my cell phone. I travel a lot of times on my own and do a lot of stuff by myself. And, it's only been recently, like within the last 3 months, that I finally picked up a Garmin InReach, and it's mainly because of Megan being in my life that I can, communicate with her a little bit when I'm in these remote places. Because this is, again, one of those remote places, like cell phones don't work here where we're at. We have no signal. The only communication we have right now, other than our vehicle-to-vehicle communication with GMRS, is through our Garmin InReaches. And I also have a Garmin InReach, and it has been nice to be able to communicate with Megan and be able to, let her know where I'm at, and and give her my coordinates, and so she knows where I'm at and everything. But there's also a little part of me that doesn't like it. And me and Edward talked about this a little bit today, and for me, you got this all these new technologies coming out. You got the Garmin InReach, and then you got Elon Musk, who's working on what I call Skynet. But
Careful.
yeah, so to where basically you have communication everywhere in the world, and there's a part to me that, like, I feel like if I'm always connected, I lose that sense of remoteness. It doesn't matter how many miles between me and the next town is. If I can just hop on a thing and communicate with someone or send out an SOS, I feel like there's a sense of losing that alone time, that and I don't know how to really say it, but that remoteness, that sense of adventure, that, like, I've always got this envelope of protection around me, no matter where I'm at, and that to me takes a little of the adventure away.
Yeah, I mean, adventure is kind of defined by the fact that there is an element of danger.
Right.
So, I mean, if you look at all the stories like Huck Finn, even like Christopher Columbus trying to sail the world or whatever, there's an uncertainty and an element of danger.
Right.
So, like, for example, when I went hiking in the ape caves here, right? You don't have any reception down there in the caves. Mm-hmm. So if something happened to you, there's something, you might need to call for help, but you might not be able to, right?
Right.
So that element of danger kind of adds to that, that thrill.
To me, it kind of adds to the experience, the overall experience of it. And yeah, some might be listening to this and think that that's a very, maybe a foolish way to think, and that, you should always, protect yourself. But there's also another part of me that doesn't like it, because I feel like it gives people that maybe would have never came out here because they probably weren't prepared well in the first place. It kind of gives them that false courage to go out into places unprepared with the idea, like, well, if I have a problem, I'll just hit my button and make search and rescue come get me. So that bothers me a little bit too. Like, you got people out doing stuff that maybe should never have been out there in the first place, never really prepared for that type of travel. But they just like, well, I don't really care because I'll just press my button and somebody will come get me, And so that mentality makes me a little bit nervous about the technology as well.
Well, and that's the part of adventure. Like, Jason and I were talking about how I told Jason, I go, man, if I was by myself and plotting this route, I don't know if I could do it, right? But the thing is this: if you're embarking on an adventure, you kind of anticipate the danger and the elements, and you know that you can handle it, or you're prepared to deal with the situation and adapt. If you know that you cannot adapt to a certain situation, or you're not prepared to a certain degree, then maybe it's not wise to embark on that adventure. For example, if Jason were to come out here by himself and there's no reception and his car broke down, he has some knowledge in repairing, because he's in tune with his current vehicle. He would know, for the most part, how to repair some parts, right? Or if you have a flat tire, you know how to change a flat tire.
Right, yeah.
But you shouldn't go out if you don't know how to change a flat tire on surfaces where there's sharp rocks.
Right.
Without reception. But if you know how to change a flat tire and you're carrying a spare, it is dangerous, but you can at least change it, right?
Yeah. If you have some mechanical knowledge, there's a lot of things. I mean, Lord knows that if you watch my channel, I've had a few issues with the van in remote areas. With some basic mechanical knowledge, sometimes you can a lot of times work around that. That's not always the case, of course, but I've been lucky enough that the times that I have had issues that I either had somebody with me that could go run me to parts and fix them, or I was able to do a workaround in order to go ahead and get the van out back to society. And I've had that happen a couple times, but yeah, I mean, I think there's that. I mean, a little bit, but I also am very aware that there's just some things that sometimes, like something could break down on the vehicle that is just not going to be repairable. And the only way that thing's going to come out of there is, via somebody towing you out of there. So there's always, you're always kind of weary of that. And I think, that's where I do think, like comms because there's just some things you just can't prepare for. No matter how hard you're prepared or how adept you are at being off grid, there's just some things that will happen that you just will not prepare for. But at least I feel like, for the most case, if a person is going out and they're fairly well prepared and they've got the right gear and everything, if something does happen, that's one thing. But for people to go out that just don't know really what they're doing, don't really have the right gear, maybe have no, knowledge on how to like repair anything on their vehicle if something was to happen, then I think there's a lot of people weighing, just putting their weight into, these satellite communications and things like that. Like, oh yeah, I'll just hit the button and, help will be on its way.
And by the way, to call SOS, even if you have that technology, it's expensive. Yeah, be prepared to foot a heavy bill if you're going to just rely on that and you have to use that.
Yeah.
So another thing I would recommend is if you're going to embark on this trail, if you're going to be by yourself, at least know how to change a tire.
Yeah.
And things like that. It's just kind of researching your terrain and your route before going. And But
so, let us know down in the comments. What do you guys think about comms and, like things like Garmin InReach, where basically people can, have communications anywhere, everywhere. Let us know down in the comments there what you guys think about that. Does that take away from the experience, or you just think it's good common sense? So I'm kind of in the middle. I do think it's good common sense. At the same time, I do feel like there's a lack of, that adventurous spirit, when I know that I have this safety blanket in my back pocket,
Yeah. I think, honestly, in my personal opinion, if you don't have a Garmin InReach and you're going somewhere for the first time and it's somewhere potentially dangerous, I mean, you have to have a small portion of you that has a death wish. Like that you're okay with being stranded somewhere and might not make it through to the end of the journey, because that's a super real situation that you can get yourself into on roads that are not very traveled. Not many people might pass by, and you don't have any communication. Yes, the thrill is there, the sense of adventure is there, but also you got to be willing to accept death.
That is true.
Yes.
So anyways, moving on, I think so.
You want some more?
No, I'm good. They're lush. What do you got going on?
Really, I'm the alcoholic over here, but I actually bought this bottle so that we can sip it throughout this trek, but it's almost done.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as comms are concerned, so we talked about that. We have comms. Both of us pretty much have the same thing. GMRS radio. I also have my ham license, InReach, and then cell phones. And yeah, quite honestly, there's a lot of this trek, because it's desert terrain, that you do get good cell phone reception. So it's not like you are remote all the time, but there's also a good section of this trip that you're not going to have cell phone reception. So
right. Yeah.
So I think having options is definitely a good idea.
Yeah. So up to the Heart Mountain Refuge, which was earlier today, right? Like I've had reception all the way through. I mean,
right.
If you have Verizon, yeah. I have Verizon, and I was surprised. I was able to post on Instagram and things like that, and even people message me like, "How do you have reception out there in the middle of nowhere?" Mm-hmm. I don't know. That Verizon does magic.
Yeah.
But up to here now, I don't have any reception. That is what I use my InReach to tell Katie that I'm safe, that I'm okay. But
so we haven't had actually reception for 2 days at this point.
Yeah.
So. Right. So kind of keep that in mind, as we haven't had reception for 2 days. There is a lot the first part of the trip, And like I said, a lot of that, the cell phone technology is line of sight, and because it's high desert and not a lot of hills and stuff like that, you can have towers spread pretty far apart and still be able to get pretty good service. But then once you start getting up like into the areas where we're at now, we haven't we haven't had reception since early yesterday. Is actually early yesterday was the last time we had reception. So.
Which is another advantage of the GMRS or ham radios, because they have a further reach, whereas if you bring a walkie-talkie, you might have a harder time in this kind of terrain. In the open desert, it might be easier if you have a long-range walkie-talkie, right? But like Jason has a ham radio, but you need to take classes and stuff like that. But a GMRS is only $70 on the website, and just register too, just letting you know if in case you guys were curious.
Which brings me to another point, like, ham radios, there's repeaters and stuff like that. So, you can get on, if you really know how to use your ham radio well and you're versed in it well, if you have a problem, could be a chance that you can hit a repeater, call out, hit a repeater, have somebody relay a message to somebody, but that doesn't seem very realistic to me. Like, that's why I chose, even though I have a ham license, that's why I chose an InReach, because and I'm not trying to sell the InReach. I'm not sponsored by InReach or anything like that. There's Spot is another one, and that's fine too. But again, these technologies, the nice thing about it is, like, let's say I do have some kind of problem with the van and it's not an emergency. I can communicate directly to one of my buddies and say, hey, look, I have this problem. Can you bring me this part? And here's my location, instead of trying to use a ham radio and try to relay all that information through repeaters. That just doesn't, to me, even though I've got the license, I don't use it enough to even really know how to make that all work out. So the InReach to me is a lot easier deal in the fact that I know that I can get on my iPad, or you use your iPhone on yours, or your phone. I don't know if you have an iPhone, but so you get on and you got, the app, and basically it's just like texting. So you just text the phone number of the person that you have, and I can tell them exactly. And with that text, they get a link to your location. So it makes it very easy. So even if I don't need emergency services, I can at least just go be like, contact a buddy and say, hey, I need this part. Can you pick one up and come out here and meet me? And it's very useful to have buddies that are good at navigating so they can find you. But
I mean, ham radios are more technical. You got to do a lot more research, but like the InReach is more easy.
Right.
You just need to sign up and pay a subscription, whereas a ham, you got to go through classes and learn all the little technicalities.
Right. And then I think, like, even if you do the classes, like, because I read the books, I passed the test, but I don't use it enough, and I'm not into just sitting around playing with it. So I don't use it enough that if I found myself in a situation that I would really know what to do to get a message out to someone. But with the InReach, it's just a matter of like turning it on, typing out to my buddy, and being done, like a text message.
And the other thing is, for ham, you have to communicate with, or you can only communicate with other people with ham too, right?
Right.
So whereas the InReach, anyone with a cell phone,
right,
you have their phone number you can reach.
Exactly, that's a good point. Yeah, and so to me, it makes more sense if I'm going to do something and rely on it for anything from major emergencies to minor emergencies, which minor emergency means I'm going to contact a buddy and have them bring me something, or come get me, one of the two. The InReach just makes more sense, and there's different plans and that there are, and you can. And if you got like preset messages at least with the InReach, and I'm assuming probably the Spot's similar, but with the InReach, you can have preset messages. It doesn't even go against your plan. So you can just, even if you just want to send a message to a loved one that says, I'm camped here, that you can have preset those in, and those don't count against the plan. Right. So you can just basically just hit a button, hit a couple buttons, pick a preset message, say, I'm camped here. It lets your loved ones know that you're okay, and it gives them a pin to with a link to a map that shows exactly where you are.
Although I will add that in the ham radio community, there are people, like, if you're in a situation, you just reach out on certain frequency, and there's people actually listening in on certain frequencies willing to help. But still, that's not as reliable as you reaching out on an inReach.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not even sponsored by Garmin either. But
No.
I'm just saying it because of its ease of use.
Right.
And I know a majority of the people out there who are into overlanding and stuff are not ham radio operators, right? Or anything like that. And if you are, great. That's great skill to have. But
Sure.
for, like this trip, like 9 to 10 days is out of the ordinary. I had to request days off of work. I'm a Monday through Friday desk jockey, 9 to 5 guy. Mm-hmm. And I usually go overlanding on weekends. And this is a out of the ordinary. But for me, and the majority of the people are, I think, in similar situations where you do this full time. I do this on weekends. Something like Garmin Reach just makes more sense for me. I think for a lot of people too, just because it's much easier.
Right. So, and then you don't have to have it on all the time too. That's another feature of the Garmin is like you can shut it off. Like you're not going anywhere. That's going to be necessary.
This is starting to sound like a Garmin ad.
I think you can do the same thing with Spot. So like that's the whole thing. It's just that we just keep posting. Yeah. We keep talking about Garmin because we both have the Garmin.
Any service that utilizes satellite, I think is good. Like Zoleo is another one I've heard of. And stuff.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah.
Zoleo?
Zoleo or something like that is another. It's like a Garmin thing. You can utilize your cell phone to text and stuff. Oh. So we're just trying to tell you that you don't have to get.
You don't have to get Garmin. Yeah. We will get no money if you buy a Garmin.
I can already see the people commenting. Oh, this is just a Garmin ad.
This is just a Garmin ad. Like these guys just got the Garmin truck pull up with money every day.
No. We're just trying to help you guys because it works for us.
Yeah, it's just yeah. So that's it. No more Garmin talk.
Yeah, screw Garmin.
Yeah. So just comms in general. And like I said, I'm with that. If you are really proficient with ham radio and you enjoy it, like I'm sure it's very useful, and that you can it's a great skill to have. But like I said, it's just a satellite system just makes things a little bit easier, I think, for the average guy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, anyways, the other thing I was gonna like I said, this was kind of your first bigger trip and stuff like that, and you spend a lot of time going out and camping and doing different things like on the weekends, like you just mentioned. But something that you've had to kind of prepare for this one a little differently. Like maybe just share a couple things that you did different for this trip that maybe you wouldn't do for if you were just going for a weekend.
Yeah, so there are 3 things right off the top of my head that I did in addition to what I normally would do. Because when I go out on weekends, I know a certain amount of mileage I'm going to travel, and usually full tank of gas is good. So one thing for this trip, I just bought a 4.5 gallon roto packs or fuel packs just in case, and I filled it with the fuel. So far, I haven't had to use it, which is good. But the thing is that, just a side note, you don't want to keep fuel in something like that for too long. Mm-hmm. You definitely want to use it and fill your tank with it if you're not going to use it. So I got that because I felt like maybe there'd be a time where I might need to refuel my car. Right. But luckily that's not the case. But maybe we will tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know. It's better to have extra fuel and not need it than need extra fuel and not
have it. Yeah. so definitely that's just a lot of these things are just in case.
You might find yourself needing a Garmin inReach if you run out of fuel.
Yeah, exactly. SOS for some gas, But I don't know. All right, since I have him with me, he has a 10 gallon extra fuel. I shouldn't have even brought mine. But
I know. I'm going to use mine tomorrow. I'm sure of it. But
and the other thing is, so this route, I knew that there weren't going to be any shower facilities. So, and I don't have a shower system set up in my truck yet, and I didn't really need it because I usually at home Monday through Friday, I take a shower every day.
Right.
But if I'm going camping, I'll make the exception of not showering for 3 days or whatever, because, it's just going for 2 nights and stuff like that. But this time around, it was going to be for 9-10 days. No shower facilities. I don't have a shower system, and it's been cold. So, I'm not going to pour cold water on me. In the summer, maybe that's feasible. Yeah. Jump into a lake and stuff. So, I got like a body wipes. Mm-hmm. I bought extra ones of those just in case. And I've used it a few times, and that's been good. So that's what I prepared on the side, and I would definitely recommend something like that if you're traveling in the colder months.
Yeah.
To bring like body wipes and things like that. It's
No, I think that's a good one because I actually do have a shower system on my van, but like Edward said, it's been windy, it's been frigidly cold, raining. I'm not gonna get so living in my van full time all the time. Yeah. Wipes of some sort, some kind of wipe is my go-to. Like I go through them and use them regularly. If the conditions are right, I'm definitely all about using my shower system on the van. But in a pinch, wipes are. I always keep wipes in the van all the time.
Yeah, and just to segue off of that into my third thing, I bought body shower wipes and I bought extra body wipes too because I also didn't. I also anticipated not having access to like toilets and stuff, so I bought extra wipes for my butt. Okay, so I've been backpacking, I've been overlanding, and those times we use a shovel, you dig into the ground, you do your business, and you wipe and you pack it back.
Why is it that every time I have a conversation with you, it always goes to pooping?
You know what's missing is a dinner. Is a good meal.
I know, why we're not eating? I wish we were eating some food right now. We're talking about this conversation.
It always. I mean, pooping is a big part of our lives.
I mean, it is, and it's a big part of like a lot of people want to know, like how do you do your business in the woods? Like, I mean, I get that question more than you. Well, how.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think anyone who overlands, that's a part of just the experiences. You got to go poop, right? Like, I mean, usually the regular people go once a day, maybe even more than once a day. Mm. Sometimes once every other day, but if it's like this many days, I know I'm gonna have to go at least like 4 times, So the way I prepared was, yes, I could dig holes in places and stuff like that, but I wanted to be a little bit more prepared just in case, right? Like,
right.
Especially because I'm not by myself or with my family, who I'm comfortable just like doing that around. I'm with Jason. I don't want to
I might film him.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I'm definitely going to film him. But so I bought a little portable, it's called a Thunderbox, and I'm not sponsored by them, but I bought them because I saw someone at Overland Expo West go to their booth, and it's like a little packable, foldable box that folds real thin, but it opens up into like a toilet seat. And then I got some bags, and I got some wipes, and then I went to CVT and bought their privacy tent and installed it on the side of my truck so that I can have a privacy tent with a toilet and bags. So if I needed to go somewhere, and even if you're overlanding, it's not always guaranteed that you're going to be by yourself.
Right.
There might be other campers in that dispersed campsite, especially on BLM land. There's certain places where you can tell people have camped. Like you see a campfire ring, you see kind of level area that's kind of more open on the side of a road, stuff like that. You never want to just drive into some bushes and just kind of blaze a trail. You don't want to do that.
Always stay on the road.
Always stay on the road. But there are certain campsites, and sometimes other people are out there and they see those same campsites. And once in a while, you're going to have to share a campsite if it's big enough.
Right.
So in that case, you might not be able to just kind of dig a hole in the ground or just poop on the ground and just pick it up or whatever, right?
Right. Well, there's other things too, like there's snow, like you can't always, I mean, if there's snow on the ground, maybe like a lot of the terrain we're in right now is super rocky, like trying to dig in it's going to be challenging.
That's another thing. You can't dig into rocks. Like
right.
That.
So, yeah, I mean, I do think something like that is nice. I mean, I've got a whole video, actually me and Megan did, about pooping in the woods and a lot of different options. But my go-to method, and that works for me, and is just doggy bags. And I just go do my business. We're outside the van somewhere, make sure that nobody can see me, and I just do my business, pick it up in a doggy bag, and throw it in the trasharoo. That works for me. It's simple.
Yeah. Everyone to each their own,
Yeah, and I don't have to carry, I carry a little tiny roll of doggy bags. He carries an entire thing that goes in his truck.
I mean, once in a while I see Jason walk out with some wipes and doggy bags. I'm like, okay. And then he comes back and
I throw him in his trasharoo.
Thank goodness he didn't so far. But that's the thing. There's different. Oh yeah, and that's another thing. There's not one specific way to do it, right? Like some people, like if you're people living out of van or using vans, they have what's it called, like those cartridges and stuff too, right?
Oh yeah, like the
compost toilets and stuff.
Right.
You can use that. It just depends on your comfort level, and that's what I liked about overlanding. That's what I actually love about overlanding is there's not one set way.
Right.
Like there's so many different ways you can do it to kind of cater to your comfort level and your needs and wants. So for him, it's just a doggy bag and wipes, and that's by all means. But for me, I don't know if I could be comfortable with that. So I needed something like an actual toilet seat type of deal with bags and a privacy tent. But that doesn't mean you need to do that, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
you know, so, but that's another thing I prepared for this trip because I knew that it was going to be at one point I might need to use that. And I actually just used it today for the first time. And that goes to show, like what I said before, there were plenty of, I think every day in this past 5 days, we've been able to access public restrooms of some kind, whether it's BLM restrooms or gas stations or restaurants. We were able to access on this route.
Yeah.
So today was the first day where we were just kind of in the middle of nowhere. I needed to use it. It's an hour.
That's an hour. That's just saying that's hours, trying to keep track of how long this thing was. So we are going to try to wrap this up, guys. Yeah. I think we've come to the end by talking about what comes out the end.
Poetic justice, right? I don't know. It makes sense.
So anyways, guys, like I said, you know, we're just trying to fill some time slots here just because, like, we are out. I am creating lots of episodes. Edward's creating a lot of episodes for his channel. But, you know, I'm also, like I said, we're going to be, I'm rolling with Ed and then immediately leaving with Donald on another trip. So it's just going to be hard for me to create and actually edit some footage. But once I get back from the trip with Donald, there will be a lot of episodes coming your guys' way. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Got a little bit more insight to some our thoughts on certain things that maybe we don't ever really share in videos because it's just really kind of hard to like dig deep into that information.
And I don't like to just kind of exaggerate things, but every day has been beautiful is what I'll say. Is what you guys can look forward to.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're liking it. And and we've got more. And I really feel like, and it's hard for me to say, like, we've been going along and it's like everything has been really cool along to this point. But I feel like it only just continues, the way this trail works. And Donald said this to me last year as well, is like it just continues to get better all the way through. Like it never, like there's no climax in the middle and then it kind of goes downhill. It just kind of keeps building all the way, and it just keeps getting more exciting and more fun as we go. So like I said, watch for videos from Edward. He's got some videos that will be coming out. I'm gonna, like I said, once I get back from Donald and I can sit down, I'll start hard editing and getting you guys some content out as well, and there should be several episodes of it. So again, I'm actually going to do this one more time. So next week, you guys will see the same thing, except for it'll be me and Donald sitting, not in a abandoned farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere.
Creepy, man. We got to get out of here real quick, man.
So, but we'll do a podcast with Donald as well, and we'll talk about some different subjects and stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you do, you know, leave some information down. Let me know like that you enjoyed listening to this, and we'll see you guys again outside.